Hello everyone, welcome back. I'm Jacob Silverblade, and today we're going to predict what's going to happen in the next update. This is me, got Jay, we got Vesk. You know them. Right, so let's go through the list. So basically my 5 things I've reckoned that they're gonna touch in the next update. By the way, we're doing this on the basis that we actually, all of us, have able to see the the meta results, so we can see all the numbers, the percentages, stuff like that. So I reckon they'll touch Roboute, Creed, and Mesos, and hopefully they touch Safa as well. And I reckon they'll touch Gaz and Skirmish. So I'll talk about that quickly, but what I reckon's going on there, because I have no idea. But here we go. So what do you guys think about Roboute? So Roboute, I reckon he's going to lose his Codex ability. And now he's gonna heal 2 to his Warlord, as a Warlord talent.
You want to go first, Vesk?
Well, I go just to make things simpler. I think that Roboute won't be touched. I learned my personal lesson last patch when Njal was going rampant, and to everyone's opinion, he was a bit over the top. And they didn't touch the Warlord, they touched the entire faction, which was still fine, as a result prove. I think generally Guilliman is pretty much fine. The cards in his package are our worst problem, our worst offender for their incredible results that he pulled this alpha season, basically. So personally, I think that Ultramarines will be nerfed, but not starting with Guilliman.
Now I don't. So, sorry, Jay. You say what you think.
Okay. Personally, I think something's coming. I would prefer it to be towards Guilliman. I don't know if it's going to be. From what I've seen, they tend to dance around new warlords and kind of try to protect their image somewhat. What you said sounds very reasonable. I was actually opting for a change in health pool as well. I was rooting for 35 rather than 40. I just think that his healing is a little bit too much. And I think that the overall health pool that he should be entitled to should be a little bit reduced.
Right.
I think they're going to touch on a number of cards.
I think, yeah, I mean, well, this is my, sort of personal takes and wish lists. We'll talk about, I suppose, what they're going to do in a little bit afterwards. But, yeah, it's... I can definitely see him getting touched. Now, as much as I do agree with you, Vesk, Nigel Stormcaller was a serious problem. The thing which makes me think that is not going to be the case is how much they have touched Ragnar. By how much they've changed, because his Fenrir and Freaking Fenrir, is it? Anyway, they
Sorry, Joseph. You mean Logan?
Yeah, Logan Grimnar. Yeah.
Okay, Logan. Okay.
Yeah. Just how much they've touched him, because the guy used to have stealth when it came down, and it also used to cost 7. Now it costs 10. And now I don't disagree with you. Nigel Stormcaller is still a really good warlord, and I just don't think people kind of got fed up with playing Space Wars. I think I think because of how much they touched Logan. I think what they saw was they saw Logan as the problem rather than Nigel Stormcaller. And so hence they made a whole bunch of balance changes around Logan rather than Nigel. And I think that's probably why we got to the resulting place that we have. That's my prediction anyway. But I think to fully explain, I think the changes I would make is that his Warlord, he loses Codex. And there's a couple of reasons for this. First off, it stops the RNG problem where if Roboute Guilliman gets Avenging Zeal in his starting hand, that can actually be quite a big problem, and it makes it a very sort of RNG based. Does he have Avenging Zeal in a starting hand? Does he not? It's still, good late game, but if he gets it in starting hand, it's a completely different Warlord, and he can actually just start beating you down. So that's where that problem exists. The second, which that would resolve, it does create the unique problem is the fact that you can't use Codex on himself anymore if he doesn't actually have Codex ability, so hence I changed his Warlord talent to healing 2 to his Warlord, and he can still trigger Codex abilities of friendly troops. He just heals 2 to his Warlord. A bit more like Abaddon does Spoiler. Because Abaddon right now is able to give +2 to him, +2 health to himself, or trigger the marker, give a marker chaos to a friendly troop. And so hence now, those 2 Warlords, basically they play very similarly. And I reckon that's probably the direction that I would like to see them take it in, instead of just outright making it. I can understand making him 535 HP would seriously would do numbers on him. However, I think that would cause, well, it would kind of defeat his archetype, because his archetype, I mean, like, I think his best archetype is control.
Yeah. It would definitely hinder it. Like I said, the healing is definitely a problem. Him triggering Codex and the Codex being the healing is definitely the issue. You addressing it in one manner is still solving the problem, so I was just thinking of a way to get around it.
Yeah. I think it's because you'd have to do too many things to make the Codex healing as a Warlord ability.
Mm-hmm.
To keep it would make it too difficult, if you see what I'm saying. You would have to...
Yeah.
You have to make Zeal not trigger off.
I have an idea, actually. I got an idea right now while you were talking. You could take away his Codex and add as an ability, the first time every turn you trigger Codex, heal 1.
Ah, yep. Well,
it's reasonable.
That's basically the same, but you cannot abuse it. You cannot do it twice per turn.
Yeah, you can't be good triggering triple Codex with a tactical insight on your Warlord healing 3. Just, I think it's the passive healing, just every single turn guaranteed healed 1, is what makes it too much. This way, with him healing 2, he becomes very much more like Titus, because Titus has heal 2 ability. Not Calgar, Guilliman would then have a heal 2 ability, but he actually has to pay for it rather than it just becoming innate. So I think it resolves both effects. It means that you can actually reasonably kill him without going for a whole bunch of like setup beforehand. For example, Imperial Guard, very good counter versus Guilliman because they play down a whole bunch of troops and then use regiment triggers / buffing all their range attack to then kill them in a single turn, which Guilliman can't. Doesn't have the greatest counters against. So that's how I changed Guilliman. Next up, we've got a chapter champion. Basically, I've said his 4 melee attack. He starts with 4 melee attack, but he only gets 1 every single turn. I feel like that's a reasonable change for him because right now he's sort of like just, if you're able to get the tactical insight, you're able to just rack up those numbers like a lot. You're able to get to 7 melee attack in a single turn. You're playing with Guilliman, you can make it 9 sort of thing. And then if he's able to punch face, that can be far too much. But to compensate, we're just going to put its melee attack to 4 so that he's still a decent threat when you play him for the first time.
I like melee attack to 4. I also thought of a suggestion, maybe. I was thinking of reducing the oath cost by 1 and removing the armor gain from it.
Ooh.
Alongside the, I think 2 armor is a ton.
Yeah.
Especially on a troop that big. I mean, for a 4-drop, man, 2 armor, it's a lot.
Well,
especially with this.
It is a 6
regen on it. With the,
yeah, it is a 6 drop.
Oh, with the 6, yeah.
Yeah. So I think I personally think as a 6 drop it is actually fine because it is, well, as you say, 2 armor is bloody good, but you are paying 6 for it if you use the oath effect. But it does give an extra flexibility that it wouldn't normally otherwise.
The melee attack's definitely the main focus. It has to go. 2 is too many.
Yeah, 2
far too much.
2 every single time, every single turn, particularly when you're able to tactical insight it, just means that it can just stack. And with Guilliman, it's just what is it? It's just 4 every single turn. So that can get out of hand.
This was the card that I was most angry about when it was released because the stats on this thing are absurd. But I will say that as much as I would like to see it nerfed tomorrow, or when the patch will drop, I think they will not touch it. Because it's not as flashy as some other problematic cards. It is definitely problematic if you play the game, but it doesn't really, is not really that noticeable in a vacuum. So I will suggest now what I think that could be various options for nerfs, but I wouldn't be surprised if they forget it completely, which is insane, don't get me wrong. It needs nerfs. There are a couple of ways you can go to nerf this card, in my opinion. First of all, I agree with Jay. One loath less and remove the armor, and just as have an added Vanguard. That's a good start. You could also make him start with 1 or even 0 attack, melee attack when it lands on the board. If you don't want to do that, you could also make Codex gain 1, which is a big difference because Codex gain 1 puts it to 4, and if you trigger it again, goes to 5, which is still too strong, don't get me wrong, but it's a big difference between 5 and 7. 7 clears everything for 4, which is unbelievable. So you could put the melee attack at current at 2 and the buff at 1, for example, which is another way to go. You could make him, if you want to make it softer, you could make him easier to be removed, so you can just leave the melee alone and put the health to 3, for example. There are many ways this card is broken, so there are many ways you can fix it. You just need to decide, do we want this to be an offensive 4-drop or a defensive 4-drop? If it's a defensive one, you reduce the current melee, you reduce the melee buff, and leave the Vanguard and the armor as they are, and the HP as they are. If you want this to be an offensive tool, you leave. You can maybe touch a little bit of the melee numbers, maybe -1 would be ideal. But you seriously drop the HP to 2 to 3 so that it can be removed easily. But you need to pick one. You cannot have both of those on a 4-drop. Like, that makes no sense.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. It just sort of does everything. It's a big melee threat within itself, it's durable, and it also has the option of later game becoming a big Vanguard piece as well. So it's sort of just let's try and point out the downside. I mean, like, the only downside you can point out is that it has armor and means that it can be killed by Borthru from the GSC faction.
Not that GSC wasn't good.
Also, you could, for example, since they like to do this on some units, you could, and this guy has clearly 2 swords in hand, and just that, you can put the range at 0, which doesn't solve the issue, but softens the way you can trade into it a little bit more. Usually, ranged attack have in general a little bit more of a price value because they are rarer, so you can just clear the range, put it to 0, so I can trade safely into it, even if it becomes unbelievably big. Many ways you could retouch this card. Just please don't leave it as it is, although, again, I wouldn't be surprised if they forget it.
Yeah, they could very much touch Rabute and then forget that this thing is still a problem. I mean, like, right now I'm playing Chaplain of Varus, and I do think, particularly in this meta with everybody replaying Rabute or a counter Rabute, Chaplain of Varus is also a counter Rabute, so it is actually just a really good option to go right now. With all the good cards and stuff. Yeah, I think that's what I'll do. And finally, for UMs, these are the only changes I would make, because I don't, as I say, I think UM is actually not crazily more powerful. There is actually counters to Rabute, unlike in the past where I didn't really, there was actually a counter to Skirmish. There is, to Space Wolves. In the past, now there is. UM still has a counter. There's an obvious counter of what you do to actually defeat Rabute Guilliman and his playstyle. So the only other thing I'd change is the Phobos, was it Phobos with is it Phobos with combi weapon? What's his name? The 2-drop.
Lieutenant.
Secret
Lieutenant.
Phobos Lieutenant. Yeah.
Lieutenant.
Yep. Well, I'm British, so I say lieutenant. Anyway, so instead, I guess it's more of a thematic change. I did think about changing some other things about him, but I've just put down and said get rid of his long range for snipe. I think long range on this guy is actually way more powerful than sniper. The fact that he gains stealth because he's actually secretly a free drop this entire time. It just means that yes, you want to be removing troops with this to trigger the slay effect, but it also means that long range you can just do damage to face. And I think that is too much of a problem. Whereas you've changed it to snipe, yes, if you don't kill him, he still has snipe, but in previous example you would lose long range. But I think majority of the people after he reveals from stealth can quite easily kill him. You know, him having free life isn't actually that difficult to deal with. The problem is that he can guarantee he can remove a troop on the following turn, or he can deal damage to face. If you move that snipe, suddenly now he's gonna actually get punished, and now you don't have to send anything to deal with him. He's just gonna die. So what do you guys think?
Jago.
Okay. It's one of those really out of the gate, this card came out and stood out to everybody. It generates value on kill, hard to deal with whenever you play it, and always at least gets a favorable trade. If not dealing 3 damage to face, it's just a strong card. Probably too strong for the slot. Compare it to other 3-drops in the slot. You've got Outrider, which is an epic, and this is not an epic if I'm not mistaken.
No, they're both epics.
Is it an epic? They're both epics? Okay.
Yep.
I just think for the slot, what it does, that much value probably shouldn't be tacked onto the 3-drop. I think Snipe's a good change. I was suggesting removing the stealth for flat up camouflage. I thought it needed to be hit harder than that, but what you suggest is absolutely fine too. I just think that there does need to be a change with this card, just because it is strong.
Yeah, I mean, that's a completely... To be honest with you, I was wondering if it needed more of a nerf than this. I will say removing stealth for camouflage is like... Camouflage is not the same as stealth. Like, they are completely two...
They are.
Yeah, the camouflage and stealth, they're not the same. They're like... Like, they... Just there's a lot of troops in this game which are basically removal. Removal on a stick, just being a troop. So hence, I mean, like, I wouldn't say it's not that I kill the card, because I'd still use it in Lavarius deck, but it is now a completely different unit in a sense if you did get rid of the stealth, which might be what it needs.
I just know there needs to be change, because as of now, it seems like it generates too much on its own.
I agree with that, yeah. What do you think, Vesk?
I agree with both of you. I think I've been playing mostly Dark Angels lately, so my first term of comparison is the Black Knight for free, which is fundamentally the same concept as a 3-drop that clears a unit and has a slay bonus. The difference is that my 3-drop clears a unit, rarely gains the bonus and dies most of the time. Your 3-drop clears a unit and gets the bonus most of the time. And there's a big difference. Okay, of course there are other 3-drops in the game, but this similar use for the card really highlights the difference, not to mention that the slay bonus you get is completely on 2 different levels. A random card can win you the game at any point. Will it be nerfed? To be honest, I don't know. I like the change to Sniper. I think that's good. I also don't like that it has long range, not only for mechanical reason, but also because he has a bolter. Like, if you go and check the illustration, he has just a generic bolter, which makes no sense to me that he has long range. I think of long range, I think of, tanks and snipers and things that can shoot from the other side of the planet. And this guy has just a pistol in his hand. and I don't think it's even flavorful for him to have long range.
Well, yeah,
I don't understand
Medical.
why a guy with
That's
a guy
what
with a revolver should be.
That's what I was
Matt's
like.
over here worried about the thematic changes.
Well, that was the second reason why I also made the change, because I think I did mention this. Can't remember who to. Maybe I made a video and then never released it. Sometimes I do that. But yeah, like it is also a thematic failure in my opinion. I can see Snipe because he is like a stealthy sort of guys, and then certain stealth units, you know, do have Snipe, but they don't have long range. Like,
Yeah.
why long range?
Maybe if you want to, maybe like I don't know, nerf it a touch more, just to make it a little bit harder to gain free value from it. You could also lower the range to 2 and leave it with long range. Even though I don't like it, I can see it being a way to nerf and keep the card being stronger, as it not as it is, but just still in the pool of cards you want in your deck. So you can get, because you know in this game more or less the thresholds are 2, 3, 4, because 2 gets cleared by the Warlord, 3 gets cleared by everything Warlord plus a card, 4 just it becomes a little bit harder. At 3 is basically free value. At 2 you most of the time have to involve an attack with your Warlord into the unit, which is a tiny bit better. So you could lower the range to 2 and leave it with the non-thematically correct long range, or give it Sniper. Those are my impressions. Although, again, I'm not sure they will nerf it. It would be nice.
Yeah. I'm gonna throw this out there as well. This is to go along with in addition to Sniper, because it could still, you know, Snipe still does the job of removing a troop for free and then getting the Slay effect, right? It still does that purpose. So the other thing you could do in addition with that is actually increase the oath cost. So right now its oath ability to gain stealth is 1. You could increase the oath cost to 2. What do you think about that?
That would work. I like that a lot, actually. I'm still not positive on that long range factor, but increasing oath to 2, making it a 4-drop, definitely seems better than where it's currently at. I wouldn't even mind seeing it with like I don't know, maybe an additional stat point somewhere if you did increase the oath cost. Maybe you got like +1 melee or +1 health. I don't know. I think I'd be fine with that too. Just increasing the cost of it. The fact that this troop comes down and basically trades with your 4-drop is a problem to me. So I think the fact that it's modal and can be played maybe later in the game would be fine.
Yeah. What do you think, Vesk?
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's also a nice touch. I think that if you increase the oath, this is a bit of a hot take. If you increase the oath to 2, so you drop it at 4, you could maybe even justify not touching anything else, which is bold, but it's in the EG type of nerf style. Because if you're paying 4 for it with stealth, there are good chances that I have a generic removal. And then you need to kill with your 4-drop, my 5-drop, which generally has better stats than 3. That's another way to go. I don't like it. So as far as I'm concerned, they can drop every point start of 1. I don't care. But I think that putting the health to 2 would be enough for it to already be significantly restrained.
Yeah. I think it'd still be, because I think stealth units are somewhat king in this game, in the fact that there isn't, personally I don't think there really isn't actually proper anti-stealth. I think a lot of cards which remove stealth don't actually do the job that it needs to do, because you go along remove stealth, but then you can't actually kill the unit. So it's as if you didn't even remove stealth in the first place. So hence I dare I say I would go for just a general change across the game, making a lot of anti-stealth cards just better, maybe instead. But that's like, we're talking about crazy changes at this point now. So
Here's my hot take. I think stealth's an unhealthy mechanic. That's my hot take. So.
I don't think that's even a hot take. I think that is just a take.
I don't like
think
it.
that
I think
Dark Angels, Dark
Stealth
Angels,
just adds
which by
weird-
the way were well positioned against UM, funnily enough, have probably the best anti-stealth card in the game, which is
Yeah.
Star Master. That's basically the only good anti-stealth card you get, and you have to play it in a faction that is not good.
Yeah, I personally think it is a good anti-stealth card, but I also personally think as like an actual anti-stealth card, it's the only anti-stealth card in the game which comes into the category of good. So
It punishes really hard if you play a stealth unit. I've had Striking Scorpion Exarch totally decimated by that card so many times. I've just rolled my eyes, but I mean it's what it's there for. It
Yeah.
works.
we'll go along to that at a later point of like Dreamland scenario. We'll do that in a moment, but we'll move on now, and we're now going to talk about your favorite faction, Jay, the Imperial Guard.
But I think, wait, Jachem, do you want to talk about also if we have another Ultramarine card in our list?
Don't know what. Yes, sorry. Right. What other cards do you guys have in your lists? I do apologize.
Okay. Personally, I have Zeal and Suppressor and Doctrine, but that's a personal thing. I think it's a good card. I really dislike it. I think that Zeal, just because of how it works with Gilliman, either you nerf Gilliman or you nerf Zeal. You cannot leave the possibility for your opponent to have a fifth turn bomb you can never come back from. That's just bad taste. It's not even broken because of the chances of the limited chances that happens, but when it does, it feels so unfair and unplayable that even for a legendary, like at five, that kind of effect should not be in play. Of course, you have a problem if you nerf Zeal. You cannot use it anymore as efficiently in every other Ultramarine deck that doesn't have the problem of Gilliman. But if you don't nerf it, you always will have that situation in which Gilliman can explode the game and basically press I win turn 5 if he high rolls, which to me is stupid. That's a bit too much.
Yeah.
My personal taste would be just keep it as it is, but without the buff to the Warlord permanently. So just buff the Warlord for one turn, and then that's it, and everything else can get the buff, because you can kind of, you have harder removals, you have ways to play against units, because you don't increase their health, you just increase their offense stats. So you have ways to manage units, you don't have ways to change the fact that the thing that you need to kill has double your stats. That you cannot modify that. So my preferred change would be that the buff to the Warlord stays only for the turn, and then everything is the same, just to keep Zeal available for everyone else.
What do you think, Jay?
I think you nailed it the first time. I had nothing else other than Chapter Champion being on my chopping block hardcore, so that was my main concern. I think other suggestions are fine too. There's probably lots of reworks. We could do small tunes and tweaks with HP pools and damage values and stuff like that, but I think just some slight tweaking here and there would be fine.
You did mention also Suppressor, Vesk. Well,
Okay, yes, this is just a very side note at the end. Suppressor has the problem with Zeal because it can bring it back. I think they just should not allow you to pick legendaries out of the pool, and that would be it. You solve your issues with skirmish, you solve eventual bullshit in classic. That's very easy, very simple. Just non-legendary and you're set.
Yep. Yeah, I can see. I can certainly see that, because I think Humanity Shield, and then the Avenging Zeal doesn't come back with its reduced cost straight away, does it?
I
You
don't
know
know
best,
what
because
I-
you are the
Well, I don't actually.
Yeah.
I don't actually
If you
use
don't
it,
know,
believe it or not. I
don't
haven't
know.
used it once, so I don't truly know. I found it to be.
I honestly don't know, but at that point in the game, we are talking about, okay, you need to have like already played Zeal, so we are talking about probably turn 7, turn 8.
Yep.
At that point, even if you get it back full at full cost, you just need to wait to trigger Codex one or two times, and you can play it again.
Play it again, yeah.
Because it comes back late in the game at that point. So the fact that it doesn't reduce the cost, you're already late in the curve.
Yeah. I can definitely see that with Rabute Guilliman being also a problem. Humanity Shield is also the other obvious problem in the fact that you're able to get it back and then you're just invulnerable for another turn. And particular problem with Rabute Guilliman because he can make himself Vanguard, and having invulnerable Vanguard for like several turns in a row just means you can't. Some factions of the game literally cannot remove the opponent's troops. So it can be a very toxic sort of feeling as well in that sense. But now, as I kind of said, Jay's favorite faction, wink wink, Imperial Guard. Now, I've done two changes. Sorry, did you want to go first?
No, I had nothing to say. I'm just shocked you think that's my favorite faction.
Oh no, wink wink I'm being sarcastic here.
Yeah. Yeah, meta abuse. I got you.
We all know it's AdMech. Anyway, Imperial Guard. I've made two changes to the Imperial Guard because I actually don't think. I think right now Ursula Creed is just a very good anti-meta pick. I don't think she's also a good warlord, so that's why she's been doing so well. But I don't think she's too particularly giga-busted. So I've only made two changes here. There's also one other thing I could consider with it, but we'll get to that one in a moment. So the first one I would change is Rattling, and basically I decreased its HP to 2, so it's more easily removed and doesn't become too much of a problem. The second one I've changed is Chimera. Chimera just seems to, when played right and well with other cards in particular to enable it, does seem to cause too many problems, stuff which just cannot be properly dealt with. So I've just decreased its HP of cost a little bit as well, from 7 to 6. What do you guys think about those changes? Starting with, well, Jay, what do you think?
I could see the Chimera change. The main problem is that with that Chimera change is that it's really easily picked off, and if you don't get the activation off the Chimera, you're basically getting nothing from it. The 7 HP allows it to more or less tank the Warlord and a troop. It effectively tells you have to have 2 troops of relevant size or a rather large troop in order to deal with it whenever you play it. So I could see how that could be good, and it could be problematic in some cases too. Rattling at 2 scares me. That card's kind of weak as it is. It's good, don't get me wrong, but seeing it hit that hard, I don't know if it'd be played at that point, like at all. Ooh. It worries me just for the fact that sure you can throw like a shock trooper or something in front of it, but normally that troop doesn't stick around long to begin with. It's always a target.
Yeah. What do you think, Vesk?
I agree with Jay. I don't think that Rattling needs to be nerfed. As for Chimera, I understand your point. I also think that when it's played and gets to activate the duty on flank speed, it becomes a little bit tough to manage. Reason for why, in my personal list, I haven't touched the Chimera. I touched the Vox Operator with just a very, very tiny +1 to the cost, because I think that most of Astra Militarum's extra power, I mean, I'm not saying about their actual strength, I'm saying about that little bit that when it's played against, you're like, this I don't like, because it looks a little bit too much, comes from Vox Operator. And Vox Operator stats realistically don't mean shit, because when you drop it, you also drop some tank with it. So I think that a +1 in cost would be more than enough to just polish the faction, which is doing perfectly fine as it is. It doesn't need a lot of nerfs. But just this is my personal little thing. Jay, what do you think?
I mean, that's fine. I could see how that could work out, really.
So yeah, I guess I should explain more why I think actually these two changes would be more appropriate. Funnily enough, you guys both think the Rattling change is more of a controversial one. I think it's I would have thought the Chimera changes would have been more controversial. I think it's just for what it does, with the fact that Imperial Guard can get like a lot of guys down, and it gets so many regiment triggers. From the Ratling, it's able to become a really good removal tool, and compared to something like a Shock Trooper, the 1/2s with 3 life. Like there's also a slight thematic sort of failure, so I thought this would also bring that in line. Turns out I really care about the thematics of this game, because a Ratling is, well, it's a Ratling. It's not a human. The human has 3 life. The Ratling has 2 life, sort of thing. So in theory,
Wait,
it brings...
but Jackham, sorry, are you talking about the dude that pings 1 with regiment, or are you talking about the servo school?
No, there's
I'm talking about the
there's
2
two different ones. Yeah, there's a 2 cost and a 3 cost. Kasrkin does it at 3. Ratling does it to 4.
No. I'm talking, Jay. No, I'm asking if he's talking about the one that does it at 2, that costs 2, or about team.
So no, not
Yo,
Tim,
no,
it's
not
not about
Tim.
Tim.
No, I'm
Not
talking
Tim.
about. I'm
Not
talking
Tim.
about. That is actually also another thing which could be considered. But I haven't. I guess I didn't think about it at the time. I'm talking about the Ratling, the 2 cost 1, the one which is right now a 1/3 with 3 life, and I'm talking about with the regiment trigger to do 1 damage to a random enemy troop.
Group, yeah.
I think
You could change the troop to the 50-50, to be honest. 50-50 damage to hit a troop, or nothing.
the thing is that I
So
think
it's not guaranteed.
I think it still would see play. As much as it would guarantee die to Warlord, I think it would just mean that it would see play in a different use, in the fact that instead of it being like one of the first troops you play, for example, you go second, you go to the Creed, you put down 2 Shock Troopers and you put down a Ratling, and you're like, deal with this board. Granted, that would actually still be a good play with Ratling only at 2 HP, but it becomes more of a, well, you know what, I've got multiple guys down now, this Ratling... I'm now done play down this Ratling to able to do a whole bunch of pings to the enemy troops, and then it becomes more of a sort of supportive to the tempo play, rather than just straight up, I have 3 life, and this other guy has 3 life, and this other guy's got 3 life, and you can't remove them all in a single turn. Deal with it. It becomes more of a technical usage play, rather than a, here is my 3 life unit, go and deal with it.
You want it to
sort
be
of
used
that way.
you want it to be used as like a tool, and then be like serve its purpose and die kind of thing, not just stick on the board and hang there. I get you.
Yeah, and it feels more appropriate for what Rattling's meant to be doing as well. Maybe give Ratling camouflage with it as well, right? Make it 2 HP, give it camouflage.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So it can't be, if you do have a whole bunch of Shock Troopers, it can't easily be removed. But I feel like maybe that, maybe. But like, it does mean that the idea is that it's more, compared to the Shock Trooper, which you do also spam a lot of, and you have a lot of Vanguard troops in Imperial Guard, which I think they should do. It makes Ratling more of a, like, just the sort of the damage output of the faction, rather than just, oh, I'm just a Shock Trooper, but better.
I think my nerfs were a lot harder than yours.
What
I
did you...
was going to go really hard on AM.
What were your
I
nerfs then?
I wanted to hit Armored Lightning. I wanted to put Armored Lightning to 7. I think it's too good at 6.
Wow.
I think keep the 3 units and put it to 7. It's just really strong. There are so many games with Ursula specifically where you will catch multiple Armored Lightnings and just stick like 4 or 5 of them in a row. Be fine. And I just think it should cost more. 7 is appropriate for me. I think 6 is too cheap.
Anything else?
Actually, oh sorry.
Any other changes?
That was
your
my main
one
hit, was
singular
Armored
change,
Lightning.
just Armored Lightning.
Yeah, I think Armored Lightning's it. I really do. I think the games where you win in the early game are basically due to a combination of like Kasrkin, Ratling, and you gaining early board control. But the games where you are losing, the games where you have to come back on board, that comeback mechanic that Ursula has, where she can just pick up anything and find a tool to solve the problem. She's just kind of like a giant toolbox. I think finding something that makes it harder to stabilize. You can still fetch mechanized infantry at 6. It's a lot weaker. You'll get through shock troopers. but for getting 3 Scions, I definitely think it should be a 7. So
Yeah, I do agree. The mechanized infantry is weaker compared to armored lightning. I agree. I certainly agree on that. In a sense, I can certainly see the change for that reason. What do you think,
I
Vess?
actually had Armor Lightning too, but it was hidden by scrolling in my list. But I had a different idea. I was thinking about making the Scions, all of the Scions, like the basic unit, 2 in HP. It would make Armor Lightning a tiny bit worse, because I also think that it's a little bit stronger, but also would limit a little bit also the Tower Spine play with Vox Operator. Just a little bit of less survivability for a unit that also comes down with camouflage, so you cannot just really ping it off immediately. I think at 2 HP would balance all the cards that are in the pack with Scions.
If I was going to change Armored Lightning, and I can certainly see it, I don't think it's that strong where it needs to go up to 7. But I do think the guys it puts down do a lot. So it gets you 3 guys which all have a juicy ability to deal 2 damage and stun the troop if it's a troop. It also gets you. Yeah. It also gives them all Vanguard, and then they all come with camouflage as well, which I think is probably the major problem, is that they all have Vanguard and camouflage. Like, compare it to the other one. Was it the 6 cost one, which gets you 3 regiment
Mechanized infantry.
Mechanized infantry.
Mechanized infantry.
Yeah. They all get Vanguard. They all have Vanguard. They have the duty ability to ping 1, but these guys get to ping 2, and they have camouflage, and they can also stun. So I think
and stun.
Yep. So I think I would just kind of do what Vesk does. I wouldn't decrease the health, because I think that would make it actually then suddenly very vulnerable to many different type of board wipes. Which, well, I did talk about once increasing board wipes, but still. What I will say though is I think their camouflage doesn't need to be there. I think
it is very unrequired.
It is like just an extra thing which doesn't need to exist, because they already have like 3 different things going on. They've got Vanguard, they've got camouflage, and they've got duty. Like, then there's basic 2 troops that they're meant to be putting down. There's a lot of things, and then on top of that, they also can get +1 life if you've got vehicle. Which I like the vehicle synergy. I think they should have, and Imperial Guard should be about vehicle infantry synergy combination plays. Like, that makes sense to me. But I do also think I can certainly see something being slightly overtuned there. So I agree with it, basically. Yeah. Right. Next up, we have the Tau Empire. Now, I didn't make many changes on this. The win rate for Mesos is incredibly high, and also the faction as well. It's kind of crazy, because I swear I don't see that many Tau, but maybe just the Tau players who are dedicated towards the greater good are really playing them. But the 2 changes I have made is that Survivor Protocols, even though I do think it should just do more than just reducing your drone's cost by 1, I don't like the randomness on it. And I don't like it that you can basically pay for, get a permanent buff, and then also get a free drop. So what I've done is that it deploys one of the basic 3, which you would get with Commander Mesos, which is a Guardian, a gun, and a marker drone. Deploys one of those 3 randomly. And then the Enforcer Battlesuit only gets 1 drone so it gets a support 1, I think it's called. Drone support, whatever it is. Instead of drone support 2, where you can put down 2 Guardian drones, just because the cost reduction with the multiple drones can get a bit of out of hand just dealing with that many things. This way they don't quite get as much, because I think the Enforcer Battlesuit was still done me like a staple anyway, regardless. What do you think about the changes? Do you guys think more needs to be done?
My suggested change for Tau drones was that you remove DS8 from the drone pool. It's a turret. It's not a drone, in my opinion. I don't think it should be in there. I think that's the randomness I dislike the most. Changing it to the basic 3 for Survivor protocols makes 100% sense to me. I think that's great. Pretty much what I had in line with.
Yeah, I also had basically in my list for Tau DS8, Savior protocols, and Enforcer Battlesuit, which seems like everyone agrees are the most problematic cards. I didn't really know what to do with Savior protocols, but I think that your suggestion is perfectly reasonable and correct to apply a nerf that won't make the card completely useless, but still manageable. If you do that, you don't probably need to nerf DS8. Although, to be honest, if you considering how many vanguards you can put in front of it and how many or stealth with the other drone, if you put it at 4, you're not doing anything bad. Considering that the win rate for Tau this season is sky high, we are talking about a 60% win rate, which is incredible. That should definitely could definitely use 1 less HP. Enforcer Battlesuit, I think that it was a little bit overbuffed the last patch. It was probably the first that I mentioned as being too much. It got too much from a single patch, considering that all of the Tau Dome package got buffed. 1 less Dawn is a good suggestion. I could also see just less HP because it has Vanguard. The thing is, it has Vanguard, so you will unavoidably end up eating on it. I think that 1 or 2 less HP point would be enough just to not put this insane break in front of your face plus the drones, and you can never go past all of that. But your suggestion of 1 drone less is also fine. I just think that it got a little bit overbuffed last time. It's worth mentioning, however, that I don't know how, but Warshaper has a 58% win rate in the last meta report, which makes me think that the problem with Tau goes a tiny bit beyond drones, but I don't have the experience that would allow me to say why we are having such a strong such a strong win rate with Warshaper. Probably because it's a little bit unexpected. Probably because of I'm not sure how it's called, but the Kroot, the big Kroot that comes down with big stuff and then with flank. Maybe something else is not good with Tau, but I cannot tell what. So for sure, those 3 cards in some capacity, DS8, Savior's Protocol, and Enforcer Battlesuit. And if there's any reason, maybe you can help me with this if you have more experience against the Warshaper. Something there. I have no idea.
I don't really know. Yeah, I mean, like, it's Warshaper right now, latest report in Legendary Division is 59.9, so basically 60% win rate in Classic mode, but is only in, was the overall? Where's Warshaper? Warshaper, 55% in overall, so it goes up by 5% when you go into Legendary Division, so I don't really know why. It might be just that he just plays Tau drones, and right now Tau drones are just too much, which I could see, and he does sort of support go wide a little bit, which Tau drones do themselves anyway, so it might be just that. There's some other considerations. There is, which you could do for Tau. You could remove these sort of like go wide, like for example Storm of Fire somehow a little bit. You could also do something about priority targets. However, I don't think they're really the problem. I honestly think that Tau drones were actually quite a bit underrated before the last update, and there wasn't really enough people playing them. And when I saw all these buffs, it didn't surprise me that they were still they were going to be so strong. So there's things we could do here, but I think we mostly agree that there's, like, I guess along with the DS8 support turret, because that can be quite oppressive, that something like that would would go a long way into supporting all this in terms of nerfs. Next up, we've got GSC. Now, for Gene Stealer Cole. I'm going for a controversial change. I've said it before, like ages back. I said it was too strong then. I think it's still too strong now. I think it always has been too strong. Primus Safariana. I think it's very polarizing that, yes, I know that, was it the other GSC Warlord has been doing well recently, Icon Ward, Malak. But I think Primus Safariana, I still think is considerably above Icon Ward Malak. And it's just because of her flexibility to just draw anything that you could possibly need and want. And I think it pretty much is that. You not getting the stuff you need, and I hate to tell you this, but either means you haven't built the right deck, or haven't built the right. What I mean by that is just put the right cards and like the right amount of cards, like, you know, right percentage. Maybe you don't have all the cards, and that's more understandable. But you're either not playing the right deck, or you haven't thought through it and remembered what you have previously drawn, and so hence you limited your options maybe in the late game, for example. I know that's quite offensive maybe to some people, but it is my honest opinion that her flexibility, just getting anything that she needs, in particularly a combo based faction, is not a good thing. And it does lead to just too much reliability on too much firepower, and so hence I think that card draw ability does just need to go. Hence I've said she can still draw stratagems, and so she becomes more a stratagem based warlord, but I don't think you should be able to choose between stratagems and troops. I think the troop draw ability is too much. I have replaced it with a different effect, which is triggering the ambush of a random friendly troop. And that is because I think the ambush archetype is actually not nearly as strong as the other two, which is the sabotage and the what is it called? The uprising. Yeah. I think it's nowhere near as good, and I think it needs more support to trigger ambush effects, because right now I think it's quite easy just to play around ambush and not trigger the effects. But with that change, you should be able to hopefully trigger more ambush effects. So I think it's quite a neat change and really supports that. The only other change I would consider, which I mean, I'm more than happy not to go with this change, particularly when Sapphire's being nerfed, so I guess so hard as well. So, and just wait, sort of like nerf Sapphire and then wait to play it out and see how strong GSC really is when they don't have such a guaranteed sort of power and mechanism to get into combos. But there is consideration for the 6-drop, the one which reduces the cost of all troops in your hand by 1. Instead, making it, what I've said is change the rally ability, make it have a rally ability instead, and it will decrease the cost of 3 troops in hand by 1. This way it doesn't get too out of hand, and it just doesn't mean you just flood the entire board with so many guys. And I did put its stats back up as well to compensate with that, so it's still a big threat within himself. What do you guys think? I recognize it's a controversial change, because it can... What we don't want to do here, which I agree, is remove the identity Primus Safariana. However, I struggle to see a world where Primus Safariana isn't gonna be the best GSC warlord, without question. I struggle to see that. So, what do you guys think?
I don't think she is the best warlord right now.
I
think Malak is. I like Miles, actually. I think just the advent of Guilliman in itself kind of puts Sappho right in her place. Sentry is the biggest and hardest counter to GSC Uprising combo there has ever been. For anybody that didn't see the first edition of the Lords of War tournament, I played the Ecclesiarch in finals, and it was absolutely atrocious, that matchup. It felt really bad.
Isn't that though more Guilliman being a problem rather than, because I'm saying Guilliman is nerfed as well.
It's not Guilliman. It's just the Sentry as a new mechanic being a problem. It's definitely a nerf to GSC. I think it's still good. I think anytime you're running into Guilliman, you have to play your list very differently. not uprising combo. It's kind of like you have to beat them down over 3 or 4 turns. You can't do it all in once.
Right, yeah.
I personally would like to see Metamorph Leader nerfed again. I would like to see the I think the cost reduction's okay. I think the rally ability is really interesting at Advent. I think that might work. However, my problem is that it gives melee and ranged. I think it should be one or the other, personally, and I think it should probably only be till end of turn. I know that seems wild. It would a Metamorph Leader, the 6-drop card you were talking about.
Yeah. But he only gives melee.
Does he only give melee?
Yeah, he only gives +1 melee to all your troops. It triggers multiple times, of course.
I thought it was melee. I was thinking of leader, sorry. I think it should be till end of turn, personally. But yeah, I think the 3-drop should be till end of turn. I think that's too much.
Ooh. I mean, like...
It's sort of like a combo. You would boost your damage for a turn and have a giant swingy turn, and then your damage would go back down to normal. I think leaving all those stats on board is pretty toxic, so...
I can see that.
There's some pretty nasty. Yeah.
So you would make it... So you would make
just till end of turn.
Yeah, just till end of turn. I can see that. I can see that being too much, though. Like, too much.
It's on a board that you have an established board, which GSC doesn't like to have. It would be on a board in which you are winning. It would give you a position where you take advantage. But on boards where you were winning, it wouldn't just flat out give you outright dominance. The buffs would go back down after turn. You ideally want to have a few troops in play whenever you play that anyway, so...
Yeah, it's a few stealth troops.
Something like that.
Yeah. What do you think, Vesk?
I've had my fair share of fun playing Safa recently, so I must admit that seeing her nerf would be a little bit heartbreaking for me. I think that she's really good, and the opportunity to do either one of the other type of card that you need is really strong. But once again, I think that the design philosophy is to nerf the Warlords as a last option if you cannot do anything else. I think that's at least what, in my experience, it seems to be the design philosophy behind the patch, the nerfs and the buffs that EG operates. So I don't think she will be nerfed. To be honest, I also don't think that GSC will be nerfed at all this patch, which is criminal. And I will explain why. Yes, the strongest list that GSC had was Uprising. Let's put aside Malak for a moment because it's still a bit of a sleeper, so we don't know exactly how much the meta would be able to adapt to it, because we don't have data for Malak. In the meta report, there are no data for Malak. So it's such a small sample. Such a small sample that we don't know effectively if it was the best deck in the meta, how easy it is to counter. I think it's very strong. Part of the fact that it's very strong is due to the fact that people don't know what to expect. Or the decks are simply not adapted to it. So I will focus on Saphos, and I'm thinking that Guilliman nerfed the Uprising, as Jay said, correct 100%, but if I am to expect a nerf to UM, which for sure it will come, then I have to imagine how was Safa before Guilliman. And Safa before Guilliman was insane, because Uprising was unstoppable, and the entire faction identity was basically aiming straight to play Uprising combo because it was just so strong. I think that GSC will not be nerfed, and that's gonna be a mistake. For the same reason, I think that if we need to nerf something about GSC, it really needs to be Metamorph Leader. I don't like, personally, your suggested change, because I don't think it's something that fits EG's style. I cannot even think about any other card that does an effect similar to that, which, in a way, I guess it makes it cool, but I don't think that they really want to implement this kind of physical action of selecting 3 units. It could be at random, but at that point it's just...
Oh no, I meant random.
Yeah, but I don't think that reducing 3 troops in hand by 1. I don't think it's gonna make the cut anymore in the lead. I think that would be too much. Personally, I think that you could give it like +2 cost and a buff to his stats. Just delay the uprising combo. Do we want uprising combo to be a playable list? Yes. Do we want to be unstoppable at turn 6? No. You put it to 8, you put it to 9. Maybe 9 is a little bit too much, but you can adjust the stats to make it, to make it big as a 8 drop, big as a 9 drop. We often, as a community, complain about the fact that there are many 8 and 9 drops that do nothing when they come on board. That's my ideal solution. Make Metamorph Leader one of these 8 or 9 big drops that require you a big investment, but when it comes on board, it's felt, So it may, that your opponent on 9, for example, has a Metamorph Leader and will combo, and you have 9 turns to get ready for it, which is much different than be ready for it in 5 and then on the 6th your death. If you do something like that, you don't need to change anything else. In my opinion, you don't need to change the buffs, the cost reduction, anything else. Finishing the game at 9, I think is okay. Most games finish between like turn 8 and turn 11, I would say. So you need to get it. I think it's fine. But yeah, it would need to be nerfed, because when UM won't be around as much anymore, uprising will come back. At the same time, I think that the stats, however, don't really justify that. So I am a little bit scared, because I think that EG will not notice how strong Genestealer Cult is. Just saying, I'm looking at the stats right now. Genestealer Cult currently has a 51% win rate, which is good. Don't get me wrong, but it's worse than Tyranids, worse than Eldar. It's good, but yeah, I think it will miss the mark. I think they won't be nerfed, and the pricing will be back once UM Gilliman is not in sight as much.
Yeah. Just to go over the win rates, overall Warlord standouts, Primus Safriana does have 56.5. Icon Ward Malak, actually I did find him, he's at 50.7. So 5.
I think the people that specialize it though. I know.
Yeah.
Stats. I just when I see these numbers, they all come out to me, and I'm just like, the percentage of low rank players that play Icon Ward Malik and the percentage of 5K players that play Icon Ward Malik, I just think the difference is so vast.
Yeah,
these numbers don't mean anything to me.
I also agree with you. I think actually Legendary, to be honest with you, doesn't even show all the best players using the best warlords.
It's a huge vast pool. I think it should be separated into high and low Terra.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
We need top 50 stats.
Yes, but I am gonna give the Legendary division win rates on Icon Ward Malik and Primus Safriana. Icon Ward Malik has a 51.2% win rate, and Primus Safriana actually goes up as well to 58.7. So she's still
the specialists. The specialists in Safa definitely specialize hard. The people that play her, they love that. They love that archetype, and that's what they do. So
yeah,
I can see that.
What do you? We talked a lot about the 6 drops. Do you guys disagree then with the card draw change? Because I personally,
I just think it's part of her tool set. I would just accept it. I don't know what to do about it. You'd have to completely rework the warlord. I don't think it's toxic though. Not the tutor effect specifically. You could argue it's just as toxic as getting stratagems with Ursula, in my opinion.
I think it's that's the thing. I don't think it's a toxic mechanic. I think it's too strong. I think
Ursula's too strong too, but
well, yeah, I mean,
semantics, I guess.
I think it's just too strong as like a warlord ability, and the reason why I specifically say this is that I think compared to the other 3 GSC warlords, and I still think this is the case for Malak, compared to the other 3, I think our ability is way stronger than the other 3.
It is. It's very good.
And so hence you either bring the other 3 up, but then I also think, I don't think, for example, Magus Avriel's NAS ability is actually bad. It's like Ursula Creed's ability, but it's it's for troops. I don't think that's bad. Maybe you can make a change for Lycus, so I can see that. But Malak's ability, I don't think there's anything wrong with Malak's ability. I just think Primus Safriana's ability is too strong. And I think it just
it is definitely the strongest of the three.
I think it leads to far too consistent games where you are able to just do the thing, when compared to every single other Warlord in the game, they can't 100% guarantee pretty much. I mean, I'm sure it's not 100% for Primus Safriana, but it's very close to. Guaranteed do the thing. So that's why
It sure makes everything very consistent.
Yeah.
But you also, I think that from a position of like, I play GSC, I really like playing GSC. If you take when you balance something, you always have to consider, in my opinion, okay, if I take this out of the archetype, does the archetype still work? Or does the faction still work? Okay, in this case we have Malak, but again, very small sample. I'm not sure how a Malak meta would look like, because it's just a bold, go wide tempo deck. You can adapt to that, it's more manageable. And this is, in my opinion, the same kind of issue that you had with Sacred Oath last season with Sisters. The effect that Safa has is very good, as it was Sacred Oath back like a couple of months. But if you take that away from the faction, you are really, really, really left with nothing to play with. I said that for Sacred Oath, and the stats proved me right, but I didn't even need the stats to know that they killed the faction. But here I can see a moderate sample of the same. You take the ability to tutor for cards from Safa. You cannot pull off the uprising combo anymore as reliably. And even when it was reliably, it was a very good deck, but it didn't combo every single time. Of course, it was strong. I'm not saying it wasn't, and that's why I suggested the nerf to the Metamorph Leader. But you cannot do uprising anymore. You cannot do sabotage anymore, because, for example, I play a lot of sabotage. I really need to do one or the other. If I didn't have the chance and it was just a random draw, I couldn't fuel my gameplay, because I don't have many options. GSC doesn't have a lot of reliable hand refill, and you would struggle a lot. You risk if you nerf stuff that strongly, you really need to basically hinder the faction as a whole.
Well, this
at the same time, sorry, I finished. At the same time, I understand that tutoring for one or the other and basically not having a third effect, it's not even balanced in between itself. I think that nobody has ever healed with Safa talent in history. I can guarantee you, nobody has ever clicked the heal one to you.
I saw Sawaxis do it once in the Safa vehicles list.
Once.
Yeah.
It's once.
So
for a man that plays Safa all his life, every day, he did it once. Yeah. Okay.
Well, healing, of course, healing used to be better. So I should have mentioned this from the very beginning. I did say healing reverted, and what I mean by that is that the healing used to heal your Warlord for one and the entire board. That would also be reverted, so she goes back to healing herself again, to help with compensate. And I guess I still remain ambivalent on this problem, in the fact that Safa, I think you have to bite the bullet in faction sort of design, in the fact that Safa is far too strong with her innate ability. And I think, because I can talk about previous history in the past, and there was multiple Primus Safriana builds all throughout, of different variants, but it was all Primus Safriana. The other Warlords didn't see play. There was a Sabotage Primus Safriana build. When the Sabotage cards were good, guess what? The Sabotage cards got nerfed. There was the Vehicle Primus Safriana build, which was very simple to play, which you've kind of seen. Guess what? That has been nerfed. But it was all Primus Safriana. So it kind of left me to conclusion that I know it's done doing a lot of nerfs, But all those things I don't think actually needed to be nerfed. I think Primus Safriana with her consistent card draw ability was too much. And so hence someone who's played this game a lot and seen GSC for its history, all I saw was Primus Safriana and I saw nothing else. And so hence I do think, to go along with this, you know, a buff to the faction as a whole should come with it. I'm not saying, but I think I am adamant on this, is that Primus Safriana innate ability is too strong, and I think it just hinders the faction from being able to do other things which are actually really fun and really cool, because this one warlord exists. And so hence
an alternative way to nerf Safa as a warlord, which is a hot take in this case, but I think I'll explain, is to put her at 30. When you play GSC, yeah, because when you play GSC, like you really don't have life, you don't have any sustain, so you die very easily, very quick if you're not careful with it. That would be a way. Would I like it? No, but would be a way to nerf like the combo time that you have, because of course you have less HP, so you have less time to work through your combo and do your things. At the same time, you are still able to do those things.
I have heard of that in the past. I have heard, and that was like a good suggestion. The problem I have with that is that it makes, for example, aggro warlords absolutely benefit from that. There would probably be too much in terms of like aggro versus Primus Safriana. You would just go aggro, and then you just kill Primus Safriana, and then Primus Safriana wouldn't able to do anything by that point because she would be dead. The problem is down the flip end, against a control warlord, well, the control warlord looks at that and goes, well, I'm not then able to kill her, even at 30 HP, within time, before she gets combo and I die. So what ends up happening with that suggestion, even though it would balance in terms of the numbers, like it would put her at a reasonable percentage win rate, right? And it would put her in line with the other warlords, but the problem is that if Primus Safriana, if GSC gets too strong of a combo, people will play Primus Safriana all the time, and then people will counter just by playing aggro, and then every single game you would see in the ladder would be an aggro warlord. And it would just be aggro v aggro, because you have to bring aggro because you have to counter Primus, otherwise you lose. So you would just see this entire game of, we have seen this in the past as well, where everybody went aggro to counter GSC, well, actually Primus Safriana, and then there was Primus Safriana decks. And there was just completely stale game. It's just like, well, I've got to play aggro because otherwise I lose. And so hence I wouldn't recommend that change either. It does, for me, it doesn't solve the problem. The problem is the consistency of combo. That needs, and it is, you can virtually do anything. There's been multiple GSC things, and they've had to nerf the faction around Primus Safriana rather than nerfing Primus Safriana herself.
Sounds like the Nid problem too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that we should have done like a drinking game. Every time Jachem said Primus Safriana, we had to take a shot. At this point,
this section of the GSC broadcast brought to you by Jachem's trauma dumping, therapy included.
Yeah, that's fair. Oh gosh.
We can move on.
We can move on. Yes, I can finally. Nice I can finally move on in life, because I won't lie. This has plagued me for the past year. So very quickly, I am going to mention it. We've got orcs. The only reason why I'm mentioning orcs is because of skirmish right now. We're not going to talk about it too much, but there seems to be, orcs seem to be doing very well in skirmish. Ghazghkull Thraka, it seems to be the warlord which is doing very, very well. I can only guess because of Unbridled Carnage, in the fact that you could get a massive board out and then you combo with Unbridled Carnage, and then it's just done deal with a whole bunch of damage to face, and it sort of kills you in a single turn. hence it's on the list. I cannot see any other thing personally else going on, so if you know what's going on in Skirmish right now, please let us know. Anything
I
about
think orcs are healthy for Classic. Go ahead. I think orcs are healthy for Classic, so go ahead, man. You shoot.
that is my
I think that I've played them against Unbridled Carnage. It is a carnage, to be honest. I would like, as a whole, like this is all I will have to say about this skirmish situation. I would really like them to go back to ban card in skirmish when they are problematic,
yes,
and leave them being when they are not. Just nerf and buffs for Classic. I think that because most of the time when you play skirmish, you have one specific issue. You know, you don't have an entire broken faction or that doesn't work or that works. You have one card that really fucks up the meta. Unbridled Carnage, but we've seen Gilliman with a Trillion Humanity Shield. Ban one, ban the other, and you're set. Like ban Triumph for Sisters because it's broken. We've been knowing for 3 months since they changed it. Like that is how you can it's even less workload. You know, you just this card doesn't go. And then you focus on everything else. And I think it's interesting with these nodes that will come up because orcs are doing extremely well thanks to that card in skirmish, but they are suffering tremendously in classic. So I think that the best that we can see is how they handle both skirmish and classic on 2 different problems at the same time.
Yep. I will end with the skirmish talk here. So we've talked a lot about nerfs, probably too much, my end at least. We'll talk about some buffs. So first off, the obvious thing which comes to mind is Sisters of Battle, and I've gone for more of instead of a more specific change, more of a general buff to the faction change. Actually, believe it or not, going back to skirmish, but I actually think that how it works in skirmish right now, where you get 1 faith for every single time you pray, I feel like in principle should be actually how Sisters of Battle work. But then to compensate for this, because otherwise I think they genuinely would be too strong, the faith requirements for certain cards should go up. So I'm thinking, like, for example, let's say the 2-drop Crusader should be 4 faith. But of course, you get faith every single time you pray, so hence, like, you're going to get the 4th faith guaranteed in 4 turns, sort of thing. So you're going to start getting those things later on. That's just one example. There is also others. You know, the Divine Intervention will probably have to go up by quite a bit. You know, the standard, like, 8 faith cost requirement will probably go to 12 or something. But faith will be easier to come by because of this. So that is actually how to buff Sisters, and I think it's going to lead to, because Sisters have always had a problem in the past where they've always been, if they're too strong, they're oppressive. If they're too weak, well, they're just weak and they can't really do anything. So what do you think about this change as a whole? Starting with Jay.
I think faith definitely needs a change some way, or the Sisters as a faction needs a change. We saw 42%, right? I believe that's what the number was.
Yeah, 42% in standard, and I think it's 42.99 in legendary, so it goes up by %.
The percent. Oh yeah, that makes such a difference.
Yeah, it makes all the difference.
I think there definitely needs to be a change. I personally think the change I would like to see would be faith moved to, or the prayer mechanic moved very similar to ferocity or the agenda mechanic, that you can activate it the turn you play it, basically. So some troops would be given flank, or troops that had flank could be given flank in prayer. Other things would just be allowed to activate prayer on the turn they came out, would probably make a big difference on the impact as a whole. If those changes were not to be seen, I think another way you could fix the faction is just by putting Sacred Rose back to 3 faith requirement and moving the energy cost to 5. I think that would fix the faction overall totally. So,
what do you think, Vesk?
I've said about the Sisters forever. I think I repeated myself a trillion times on how they desperately need things to be different from what they are. Like, I think I agree with Jay actually, in the sense that I think that the best thing you can do for Sister is to put the entire prey mechanic to flank speed. And I explain why. I went to the cards that Sister have, to the praying tubes specifically that Sister have, and only 7 out of 19 are playable, vaguely playable. I'm not even saying good, I'm just saying vaguely playable. That's bad, because that means that one of the core mechanic that your faction has doesn't work. Because the units that you want in your deck that have prey as a mechanic are only 2 legendaries and one that has flank, and the 2 cost ones that are basically just there. It's clear that there is a problem with that, because it means that all the cards that you put out with the flank mechanic, with the prey mechanic, don't work. They don't do the job you designed them to do. To fix this, you move the praying action to flank on all of them, so you can actually put them down and you don't have to wait 2 entire turns before eventually maybe you get the buff back, the faith proc after you prayed. Because the problem is that you put down, for example, Hospitaller on turn 4, it does nothing. You pass, your opponent doesn't remove it, turns back to you, you pray with it and deal 3, which by the way is a shit effect. Then you pass again and you don't attack, and you pass again. Your opponent doesn't touch your Hospitaller at all, then it comes back to you and you gain 1 faith. This is a 5-turn back and forth before I gain 1 point that is crucial for my faction to function. That is insane, and 12 cards out of 19 have this problem. That's a fundamental misunderstanding in how you want an entire faction to play. Of course, if you put the prey mechanic to flank speed, you need to change something, because, for example, Triumph becomes very good if it can comes down and just shoot your opponent in the face. You need to adapt to it, but you cannot leave half of the card that you have in your pool to die because that faction is just so poorly designed. And when Sister were playable last season before the nerfs, I was saying, look, if you pick the decks, like if you pick Erika, if you pick Morven, if you pick Evelyn, if you pick June is just a little bit on the side, but still in the mix. If you look at the list, you don't have a pool of 50 cards to choose for. You have a pool of 15 cards. You can change 2 or 3 of them, but the others are just the same one. You have to play Zephyr Superior. You have to play, back in the days, Sacred Oath. But the reason why you play these is not because they are functional specifically to your gameplay. It's because you don't have other options. Because you cannot play Mini Stormpriest, you cannot play Hospitaller, you cannot play Magifera, you cannot play 12 of the fucking cards that are praying, because they are poorly designed. Move them to flank, let them at least come down with an effect on the board, and then tweak those effects, like, for example, Triumph, that would be too strong in that case. But that's the only direction you can see to fix or just, I don't know, revert the nerf to Sacred Oath, and we are back at the same 20 cards and everything else is not even considerable, which to me is stupid.
Yeah. By the way, just to make it obvious, I presume this is what you mean, but when you say make the mechanic flank, you mean don't just give every single guy with prey flank so they can start melee attacking or shooting. No, you just mean you can activate the ability on the turn it comes in play. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And as you say, to also compensate with it. So because both of you said that, I'm guessing you would both prefer that over what my suggestion was, which was you gain 1 faith every single time a unit prays, and you just gain 1.
Probably so. I would have to test both before I could really give a verbatim answer, but I mean, I think it would make sense thematically with the way the rest of the game operates, without like jacking mechanics from skirmish. I mean, you have cards that can activate Ferocity when they come down. cards that have flank can activate Agenda when they come down, I would just assume just to activate. Or Oath when you play a card that can activate Oath the turn it comes down. I would just assume to activate Prayer too.
Yeah. Okay.
So,
Yeah, it makes more sense.
I think that, and also I think that if we go with your suggestion, like talking from the perspective of a player, that doesn't fix my deck building issue, which is, by the way, the same reason why if you play against Sister and you don't play the faction, that's why you feel bad when you play against Sister, because regardless of what is the warlord in front of you, you are just playing against the same deck over and over and over again. And it's not my fault as a Sister player. It's the fact that I cannot choose anything else. I don't think your solution would fix this. The fact that half of my card pool is unplayable.
Yeah, it's.
There's a lot of really bad cards in Sisters.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. So, well, I mean, like either way, we're looking at more fundamental changes to Sisters of Battle rather than individual card tweaks. Like in both cases, and you both agree. Thank you for that, Vesk. He's just put down every single card he thinks is actually playable in Sisters of Battle.
It's not many.
There's not many. Hold on, I just want to go through it. Astrid Ferger. Is there another one? I would say the only thing I disagree on is, of course, I would actually say Mira Storm Priest. I think that is playable, just looking at them, but everything else.
I think it's playable because there's no other Solar Spin. There's no other slot. Like there's no other 3-drop slot you want to play, really.
Yeah. Nah, I think so. So it go either way. It only goes up by 1 in difference, isn't it? Like it's not.
I know.
it's still a fundamental problem. But yeah, I now hearing to both of you, I am more actually agreeing with what you guys are saying. Of course, with the few changes here and there. Obvious one being the Triumph maybe not being able to directly hit Warlord with the prayer ability, because it's still got 7 melee attack. So that's still quite a bit of damage to face. But outside of that, not massive changes. Next up, I've got Necrons. I've only got one change for Necrons. I just think Immortal Pride didn't need a nerf. I don't see. I don't think it needed to happen. I think it's only Immortal Pride. I don't think it's even playable in Imatech. I think it's just, dare I say, too slow for Imatech, which means if your card's too slow for Imatech, it means it's bad. So the only card actually I see it being possible playable on is Orokin, and you're going for a very different type of Orokin deck, where you're going for a lot of like revives and stuff, and you would only include 1 copy, and it's simply just because now he has a free hero power instead of a 1-cost hero power, and that's literally it. And you only include 1 copy because that's all it serves as a purpose. Outside of that, I think Necron's actually still perfectly fine. They've still got a lot of like things they can do. Outside of like, few cards here and there, but which are like obviously too weak. But we're talking about just we're almost there in terms of perfectly balanced sort of game, and then we bring up everything else around it. We're trying to make like sort of the best decks more ideal, against between all factions. So I think just the Immortal Pride change back down to 6, I think would be fine. What do you guys think?
Yeah, Immortal Pride. The poor Necron faction. They were doing so well, barely sitting at the top of S tier, and then got absolutely knocked down. What are they sitting at? Like 47%, I believe, in Legendary Division?
Where is their win rate? Legendary Division. I've got it up. Psynac Dynasty, 47.08% win rate.
From 51, so 2-card change knocked an entire faction down from a 51% win rate to a 47. I think just because a card is a problem in one format doesn't mean you should change it in the other. If anything, just ban the card in one format and let it be played in the other. Immortal Pride. Yeah, 7 energy tempo loss is huge. To say I'm going to give up my turn for 1 armor and future turn development, and you're looking at a completely empty board and just passing it back to your opponent. It's like, here, you can play the first creature.
Yep.
That's a problem.
Yeah,
It's a lot to take in.
It's that, and then Gilliman turns around and says, "Well, here's a predator and a tactical insight, and
Yes.
then here's a whole bunch of damage." And it's the predator's
Yeah.
still here, so best of luck.
It's a big it's a big tempo change, and it hurt to play 6 before, and now we're paying 7. So I definitely think it was unwarranted, especially for us classic players. So hopefully that gets reverted back at some point.
Yep. What do you think, Vesk?
Yeah, I don't. I don't have a lot to say because I don't neither play or like Necrons, to be honest. It's just personal taste in this case. What I can say is what an average non-player can see just by looking at the actual game against the actual games against Necrons and the data. They removed one card that was, in my opinion, frustrating with the. You can help me here. The destroy. I don't know how it's called. X-Mark. Sorry,
X-Mark.
Damage Dexter. Yeah, I think that card was stupid. So I'm happy for that nerf because it didn't make a lot of sense to me that this card can just for free basically go everywhere. So with that I'm fine. Yes, I'm just objectively saddened by the fact that Mortal Pride so hard, it's so hard the entire faction. The problem is that you don't really have alternatives, because when you is basically the theme of the entire conversation. If you want to nerf something, you have to give the players alternatives, So if you want to nerf Immortal Pride for Necrons, so okay, for this X period of time, you don't want Imotech to go for super late game strategies, control strategies. You don't want that kind of meta, so you manipulate the nerfs to avoid that. That's fine, but also you need to give me a buff to Ramatech, or just something that works better with Nemezor, with the Remnant archetype. You took a cornerstone of the faction and you haven't substituted with anything, and of course the faction came down. In my opinion, at 7, considering that it's the type of gameplay that wants to go very long, can stay. But you need to give me a couple of other options to manage the rest of the game. You cannot just push my endgame cards to the end of the curve and let me with the same to figure out what to do before that. So
Yeah.
If they want to revert it to 6 is fine. If they want to leave it to 7, then I think a couple of buffs to something. I wouldn't know because again I don't really play Necrons, but to something you probably know better somewhere around the early game, the middle game, just to transition a little bit more smoothly and don't have this gap in between the middle game and the end game.
Yeah. I just looking at Imotech himself, probably the most powerful warlord, maybe even still, maybe not. He only has a 50.7% win rate. In terms of what Necrons did, hold on, let me just make sure it's that. Oh no, that's overall. Let me find in Legendary Division. 50.7 Imotech. Where are you in Legendary? Oh no, 52.5. Okay, it's not terrible.
Wasn't even that bad.
No. The other alternative, which sort of Vesk was talking about, the only other thing you could do with Imotech was just sort of not run Immortal Pride, which means that you're not running the Artifice sort of combos, so you're not running Hexmark Destroyer and stuff like that. You're just going for generic value. So you're just running Lich Guard, not Damage Hexmark because it's Artifice effect. You're going for Score Effect Destroyer. You're going for Locust Lord. You're going for Necron Lord, and then you go for Tomb World. It's just a Tomb World sort of reanimator sort of deck. And that was the only other deck which really exists, and then of course with that there's no need to run where is it? Immortal Pride. You don't need to run Immortal Pride anymore. And that kind of what's happened here is that the card has been killed. I think that's the problem. We still want cards and archetypes to be playable. Even if they might be too strong and hence need nerfs, but we still want them to be playable. We still want them to be usable, and that's the problem here. There was nothing really to fall back upon, as Vess really said. Certainly not something which was as good, and I think we would all agree here. Maybe you disagree actually, but it wasn't enough which was needed. Imhotep wasn't causing that many problems it was good warlord, but it wasn't that overpowered status, sort of, so to speak. So reverting it back, I don't think will make Necrons. I don't think, specifically Imhotep, I don't think will make him too strong. With that being said, we're now on the stage where I feel like I've got like my personal buff to the personal faction that I would like to see, and then we'll sort of close it out here. My personal buff is that I sort of want to see Orc control come back a little bit more. So kind of like Imhotep's armor costing 6, there was a time when Grizzled Scarboy, which was the armor ability he gave to Ghazghkull, for example, used to cost 5. So I'm asking, and then also Will of Gork, the board wipe for Orcs, used to cost 8 as well, and when those changes happened, basically the archetype died. Now, there is other factors to consider which have been changed since then. For example, what Orcs have is that they've got the Squig-Off now, but actually I think Squig-Off actually has anti-synergy with Will of Gork, because Will of Gork kills the Squig-Off. So if you're in a situation where you have a Squig-Off but opponent still has too much of a board, well, you still use Will of Gork, but you are killing your Squig-Off, which is a massive sacrifice to actually make. So I don't think it's... My point is that these slight changes will help. Oh, and with the armor buff as well, I said the health you gain from it goes away, so it becomes 5 costs, but it just gives you warlord armor. I know it's less interesting, but I think that balances it. What do you guys quickly think on that? How do you feel?
You're more or less getting at, you want the control orc archetype to come back, is what I'm kind of hearing.
come back more in line, undoing some nerfs which were existing in the past, which orcs used to be more like this. Will of Gork used to be 8 cost. It used to be 7 cost back in the day actually, but they nerfed that quite quickly. I just don't think Will of Gork, like, even in Control Gaz, I don't really like it. It's just, I find it to be too late. And there's always a thing with Will of Gork about timing and when to use it and all that stuff, and it ends up becoming a problem of wrong timing quite often. So I would like to see that archetype come back more. What do you guys think, or would you do different changes to bring that archetype back?
I think how every orc strategy is kind of either aggro or mid-range right now is pretty lame. I think it would be healthy to have control back in the rotation. I think every archetype should be able to play I think every faction should be able to play the 3 main archetypes, which are your control, aggro, and mid-range. Combo being pretty much exclusive to GSC and whatever else they release in the future, but maybe Space Wolves. I think every faction should be able to play the 3 archetypes if they want. So I don't see a problem at all. I think it's a pretty healthy and welcome change.
Yep. What do you think, Vesk?
I don't see any problem with that as well. Also, I know that Orc have had their glory days for a long time, but they also have done nothing in the most recent time. I don't see a problem with giving them some love, but again, it comes down to how they manage balance between skirmish and classic here, because this time we it's not the same as it was in the last patch, where Sister was still performing decently in the meta and in both metas, so you could justify one nerf to nerf both the modes basically. Here you have a very distinct division. If they want to buff orcs, if they are just focusing on skirmish, but if they want to be doing that, so probably removing, I don't know, from Skip or nerfing Deathluta and Unbridled Carnage, then you can definitely give some buffs, because the faction is clearly in need in Classic, and that's definitely a good option. If I may say that if they could give some buff, please, to my beloved Dark Angels, I would greatly appreciate, because even this season we lost with all our warlords below 50% again, despite Israel was kind of considered decent and Asmodai had a vaguely decent matchup into Gilliman, or rather pretty good, but nothing special, not the best for sure. At the end of the season, we have everything under 50% again, and I think that they really need some love. Almost every of their cards are outclassed by everything else. You can just pinpoint every card. For example, I was looking earlier today. We have, for example, the Blade Guard version for 5, which is basically a very worst version of the champion captain from Ultramarines. There is also, where is it? Steadfast Warrior, which gives armors to your friendly units until your next turn at 4 energy, which is 1 more than Sister Prey for Conviction of Faith, which also heals, which I don't really understand. Those are one card has one extra effect, one good extra effect for 1 less energy. I'm very confused. Most of the cards in the pool, which is also limited, by the way, do nothing, and you would never, ever play them for no reason at all. Asmodai still, yes, we know Asmodai still can work because of the secrets are good. The pack of secrets are good, but everything else is really tragic. You have to play every legendary that you have to have a good deck, because you don't have options. You just your cards compared to every other card in the game is just on average a worse version of them, and I think it's a bit tragic. So I wouldn't even know what they should be buffing. In my opinion, they should take a look at the cost of cards compared to their relative effect, because most things are overpriced or just underwhelming in the effect, and they should just retouch a little bit the faction, honestly. A bit like they did with Tau, just a bunch of changes to the actual card. The mechanics are fine, as well as Scry is fine, Asmodai is fine. Belial could use a change, but I doubt that will ever happen. But just the cards, man, the actual selection that I have.
Yeah. Is there... I guess you don't have any particular card in general you'd really like to say change. You mentioned Steadfast Warriors, but is there any particular card?
I would really like to see Master Lazarus, since he's a legendary. Usually they start with, they buff 1 legendary and 2 or 3 other cards. If I want to see a change, maybe make it a useful legendary. That would help. Otherwise, Company Champion is useless. Deathwing Knight is unplayable. Company Master is unplayable. Where is the other one? The other guy that... sorry. The Captain is bad because it has basically a worse effect than the Chaplain. Both of them, they let you put a card on top of your deck, but in one case it's just a troop. In the other, you can at least choose. Honestly, it's even hard for me that I play the faction every day to pinpoint what needs to. But if they gave just 1+1 somewhere to every troop, that would be fine. And a one stat improved. That would just help, not being so much worse compared to UM. Or even revert the nerfs. So revert the nerfs to Deathwing Terminator and to Lazarus back to 5. And the nerf to Deathwing Knight back to 5. They have to do something, because the faction has been 6 months, if not more, that is not performing. The only reason Asmodai is playable is because it has a good matchup against Gilliman. The moment Gilliman goes away, Asmodai goes back to being depressed in the corner. Some love.
Yeah.
Just really from the heart.
I think Asmodai has always had like a 50% win rate, and that's probably based on the odds of him drawing a secret, not based on the cards which you put in his deck. So that's probably not good design.
But I agree. But I
Yeah.
don't think that Asmodai needs improvement by itself. I think that
Yeah.
I would really like to not look at my card and compare them to my Ultramarine opponent, and he can
Feel
play
worse.
a unit 4/4 that I cannot remove,
Yeah.
and I have to play a dead tempo drop. Like
Yeah.
that's really bad.
Yeah, it doesn't feel right, does it? And Jay, is
No.
there any faction you would particularly want to buff or not?
We were talking about mid-range for Necrons and how they kind of did nothing in the mid-game. I personally want to see the 3-drop Triarch Praetorian with Vanguard, the 3/3/4 health
Yep.
Vanguard unit for Necrons. I just want to see it go to 5. I would be absolutely happy if it just went to 5.
That is a
A 3-drop
for its
is
cost. That's a beefy boy. I'm not gonna lie. That's,
It is.
Yeah.
It is, but they need something for the mid-game. They currently have nothing.
No kind of.
It's
No,
what is your 4 or 5 and 6 plays are just so they're mid. You
Yeah.
just play them, they get traded off into, and then you just have remnants.
thing is, I
lying
think Triarch Praetorian's already a playable
around. it
card.
is already playable.
But for
Yeah, it is already
example,
playable.
you got Crypto 4, which is another Vanguard troop which never sees play. You can open up game, you'll see it. It's only got
And it's
4
a-
life. Now
I
can.
know.
Yeah, it's a 4 cost. It's a 5/2 with 4 life.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Some stats changed, and that would be nice.
Yeah, that could certainly use. I could certainly see him getting 5 life. I would also like to see him some sort of ability, which because
Yeah.
what it's meant to do, it's meant to synergize with, for example, Chronomancer, I think, or the Technomancer, those sort of revive guys. So maybe some sort of revive ability on him bonus. Like maybe when he gets revived, he gets like plus 1 additional life, and also increase its life to 5 base cost of 5, right? So it actually becomes like a really annoying like revival sort of protocol sort of thing. I can certainly see that. I'm saying this on the fact that Triarchtorian's already good. He would be great if he had 5 life.
I think the mid game is so rough for Necrons, and they just need more playable troops. Again, this just barrels down to a lot of the factions need reinforcements, and that's basically what it boils down to.
I think
They just need another helping hand of supplementary troops to go in the middle.
I can see that, and compared to like other factions, but I also think that like if a faction has a lot of dead cards, then really
They could be reworked.
there's a lot. Well, yeah, or just slight tweaks here and there, slight improvements, right? Which is brings it up to a point of meaningful, not like, oh, now this is the new best thing, but just meaningful, is actually playable. It's also good. It's just a generally good thing as well for newer players. If you want to encourage newer players getting into the game, making more of the collection more meaningful and playable means that they're less likely to get a bad card which they don't like. So I think that's also, yeah, I agree with you.
I would be absolutely okay in sacrificing stats and other points from like Triarch Praetorian into giving it a health too, like maybe remove a ranged or remove a melee attack in order to give it that additional health. I would be fine with that.
Yep.
I just think they need some kind of mid-game Vanguard unit to play around it.
If you did that, I would actually be completely fine with that. If you like got rid of the range attack by 1, made it 2, and then gave it 5 life, I can see that. And then it has more of a dedicated role of being, I am a tank. Hit me.
Yeah. Hit me.
Yeah.
Guys, just because otherwise nobody will mention, but I think it's worth it just to be objectively more complete. What do you think about the performance of Emperor's Children? We're talking about a 50% win rate overall in Legendary Division, which we know that matters up to a point. But especially we have Lucius with a 56.3% win rate and I think they need help. I don't like them at all, so if they don't touch him, I'm happy, because I really dislike to play against TC, and I'm happy to like run them over every single time. But objectively, I think they are not doing well.
Yeah, it's a weird one because of course Lucius has received several nerfs over the time. The problem is that, for example, Lucius, as you said, in standard he's actually even higher. Overall he's even higher. He's actually at 59% win rate, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, he's a beast. He's a beast.
But in Sensei he's 56, which is by no means bad. The problem I think with Emperor's Children is that they've got a lot of synergy cards, which synergize very well with Lucius the Eternal. The one obvious one I can point to is, or is it Exquisite Swordsmanship? Is it the 5 cost?
Yep, you're right.
Exquisite Swordsmanship. That really synergizes with Lucius because it's a 4 damage clear the board, and then you also get to do 4 damage to face. However, with something like, even with like Lord Kafal, it's nowhere near as good. It's 3 damage to clear the board, which is nowhere near the same. And even though it's still not bad, and it's only 3 damage to face, so the numbers just aren't the same. So hence, Emperor's Children are in a weird place where I think there's a lot of cards which really synergize with Lucius, and they certainly, when designing this faction, I think they had Lucius with in mind. But like, for example, Demon Prince Xanath, I think, could almost use the Abaddon treatment, where Abaddon in the past used to only give Mark of Chaos to his troops, didn't have the 2 costs give this guy to life. He didn't have that effect at Abaddon. I'm saying something like that for Xanath would suddenly make him playable, because right now, I mean, like, this is an actual faction I think could use reinforcement drops, because I don't think, with how things are working right now, I don't think you could buff the faction too much. Like, for example, Xanath really needs more demons to be able to buff. There's only so many demons within this faction, and that's if you want to play them all, which you probably don't. So hence, if he had more demons to buff, suddenly his hero power becomes a lot more relevant. But as there's only so many demons, he's gonna be just restricted on a level, which is not gonna be particularly good because of that reasoning. And I think Lord Kafal really wants to play a bit more of a long game, but doesn't have the support from the cards right now to able to play that long game. So hence he's sort of forced to play like how Lucius does, but like a little bit later, so he's like more of a mid game. But really what he wants to be doing is getting a whole bunch of stimulants, and then using those stimulants on the right troops at the right time to have really powerful, devastating effects. That's how he wants to be playing. But as it stands, he doesn't quite have the support to be able to get to that point where he can reliably do that consistently. So hence, he struggles in that sense. So he plays sort of like a mid-range slash aggro archetype. So I think I completely agree with this, Vesk. Something needs to change. That is actually one I would put down to, dare I say, a reinforcement drop. But even then, just more like simply a Vanguard troop. Any Vanguard troop for Emperor's Children would go a long way for Lord Kafal to play more control.
Something that hits flyers.
Something which hits flyers, yeah. Just give them wings.
Tool.
Just give them some Red Bull. Just like have a card. Red Bull. Oh dear.
Even for a turn would make a huge difference.
It would, yeah. And then there's just a couple of other things. There's cause cards which are completely useless, which never see play. But yeah, I mean, like it would be helpful. Like something like the Screamer Cacophonist. It's a -4/-4 to enemy this turn. That could be until your next turn, for example. And then it will actually mean that the enemy troop, which the opponent plays, would actually get hurt. Like for, you know, can't actually attack, do that much damage back, and you're actually saving life that way. That is a sort of good example of how they could make a change. But as it stands, the ideal unit to probably use with more Lord Kafal build doesn't see play because he's right now not doing the right thing for that build to actually work properly. So Hence, yeah, this is where we're at. I agree with this.
I think that overall, like, they have AC as very, very, very good card. That if they are not answered, they can absolutely run over the game. The problem is that they are very disunited between, like, untied between themselves. So you basically, your gameplay is either go full aggro, or if you want to play a more troop-oriented gameplay, you put down a troop and you hope to extract as much value as you can from that troop. And if you don't, you start to fall behind. And then you have another good troop like Obsessionist, but if your opponent removes it, you fall behind. And you kind of never make it to like getting somewhere if you want to play troop-oriented gameplay.
Yeah.
What I would personally like to see changed is a buff to all those stimulation effects that lower the in general, a buff to every card basically that lowers the stats of the opposing troops.
Yes,
with a caveat that cannot be ignored. If they do this thing, so if they buff the card that lower opponents ranged, melee and ranged, they need to change the game so that I can attack with my. So that I'm 2-0, you can't do anything anymore because you will not filling your board, and that's terrible. So I think that the card that give -1, -1, -1, or -2, -2 can all of them get a buff, but with the very important change of letting me get rid of my troop by just hammering it away against your troops.
Fortunately, we didn't quite get everything you said, Vesk, but I think I agree in principle. A lot of the minus effects aren't typically that powerful. The only one I can really think of is the Disharmonist, the 5-cost one, which gives -2 to random your troop, and you do use that in Lord Cathal, but outside of that, there isn't particularly many other troops which do a minus sort of effects. That would be a cool, interesting archetype, and that should be Lord Cathal's archetype, for example, and it's more of a control-based archetype. But yeah, we'll call it there if we can, unless anybody has any sort of burning, urgent sort of things they want to talk about.
No, it's fine.
I think we said a lot.
Yes. Right.
We covered a lot of ground.
Yes. Thank you very much, everyone, and I'll see you all next time.